Right now, the feds are going after a man for building a pond on his own property. The EPA threatening to fine him $75,000 a day unless he drains the water and restores the land. Alicia Acuna is live in Denver with our ongoing series, It's Your Land. Alicia?
Hi, Patty Ann. Andy Johnson and his wife built this pond in 2011. The Wyoming State Engineer's Office gave him a permit and told him he didn't have any more hoops to go through until the Environmental Protection Agency got involved.
I love the work that we put into it and to know that my husband was able to build something like this.
Now you can see bald eagles here. We have moose come down. 4 and 5 pound brown trout live in this. It's just been a tremendous environmental benefit.
In January, the EPA told Johnson because he didn't get a permit with the Army Corps of Engineers, he violated the Federal Clean Water Act, in part because 6 Mile Creek, which feeds other waterways, runs through it.
They're alleging that I've, altered the navigable water, which is the Green River, which is more than 100 miles from me. It's just crazy.
The EPA gave Johnson 30 days to dismantle the pond or face fines of $75,000 a day.
We can sell all the coal that we can get out of the ground, and they're tying our hands and won't let us get it out of the ground. They want to put us out of business.
14 total are left, where 10, 15 years ago there were hundreds. It's basically because of the federal government and the rules and regulations.
These people didn't do anything worthy of going to jail. They got their citations, let them pay the fine, but to send them to jail, you're basically going to, a lot of these are just small family-owned mines. You'll shut them down. And actually, if you put them in jail, you stop their production, you stop their income for their family. And it was extreme measures, very extreme measures what he was doing. In my opinion, and this is strictly my opinion, it was abusing their authority.
What I see up here happening is, right now there's a big boom for anthracite coal, and when the miners finally have an opportunity to become somebody up here in this area to make some money and make a decent living, they're getting stepped on by the Mine Safety and Health Administration, the federal government, which a part of I work for, is helping to put them out of business.
What are you going to do if you see 2 of your neighbors being taken away in handcuffs? Aren't you going to think maybe getting a job at a local Walmart is a good alternative? Or going on welfare?
Virtually everyone who's looked at that has said this will kill jobs. This will move jobs overseas. Everyone who's looked at this has said that it will increase the cost of energy for the American taxpayer. So it does 2 things. It kills jobs and it increases the cost of energy. Why would anyone vote for this? This is absolute foolishness. Today, Americans are concerned about jobs. They are really concerned about jobs. Everywhere I go, people ask me about jobs, they ask me about the economy. And today, we as senators have the opportunity to do something about that. This resolution, clearly, its failure and the implementation of the rule that the EPA has put in front of us is going to kill jobs, and it's going to increase the cost of energy in America. It is going to do precisely what so many senators come to the floor and whine about, and that is run jobs overseas. If you're a job creator, if you're someone who is thinking of investing, if you're someone who wants to move the American economy forward, you look at every single aspect of it, and when you see something like this, and it isn't just this, it's this in a parade of never-ending rules and regulations that kill jobs and increase the costs for the job creators. These are things that clearly urge job creators to create the jobs in a place other than America. That's just flat wrong. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today primarily. What I'm here to talk about today is the way we're going about this. You know, the Founding Fathers did a really good job when they set up our government. Indeed, out of the thousands of governments that have been created over the years, all of which have failed, most of which have failed, only one has had the success that our founding fathers have had. They created a government out of fear of government. They didn't create a government that said, how can we do this? How can we do that? They were interested in keeping government away from them, keeping government away from their jobs, from their businesses, from their investing. That's what they want to do, and it worked for about 200 years. For about 200 years, the federal government left the American people alone. They left the job creators alone. Today, over the last 3.5 decades or so, the federal government has stuck its nose into every single aspect of our lives. And here we go again.
Under the leadership of U.S. EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson and Energy Czar Carol Browner, the Obama administration continues to develop an unprecedented amount of draconian environmental regulations that will severely damage America's beleaguered industrial sector. The fact is that the Obama administration and its liberal allies are conducting a full-scale assault on America's energy sector and on our industrial base in the guise of environmental protection. Now, 40 years ago, President Richard Nixon signed into law the 2 landmark statutes that were designed to reverse decades of environmental damage that built up in the industrialized era. They were the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act, and the results were astounding. The amount of particulate matter, that's dust to you and me, and lead in the air quickly decreased almost 100-fold. Concentration of other air pollutants, such as carbon monoxide and ozone, dropped precipitously. Fish returned to waterways that had been horribly polluted just a few years before. Lake Erie rose from the dead to become a sportsman's paradise. But there was an unanticipated consequence. Meeting the requirements of the new legislation required a new kind of support infrastructure, including everything from the Sierra Club lobbyist pushing Congress to pass more and more legislation, to the company that makes state-of-the-art pollution control devices, to the armies of federal, state, and local bureaucrats who make sure that everyone follows the rules. The newly federalized environmental movement became the feeding trough for thousands upon thousands of people and organizations, all with an interest in keeping the money flowing, and each with rapidly growing political influence. And so every administration became anxious to establish its environmental bona fides and trumpet its green triumphs. The EPA, likewise, wants everyone to know that it's using taxpayer dollars wisely and is thoroughly protecting the environment. But nobody is going to declare victory and just go home. No one is going to say, hey, that's clean enough, America. Let's cut back the size of the EPA and the environmental industry and just go into maintenance mode. The EPA is now its own beast with its own agenda. A particular administration may influence how aggressive the EPA is in cracking down on violations of EPA rules, but the agency's rulemaking and standard-setting machinery continues to chug along no matter who's in charge. For years, that machinery generated new standards and rules at a fairly consistent, predictable rate. Then, Barack Obama took the oath of office. Now, under Obama, the craziest tree-hugging inmates of the EPA are now effectively, if not officially, in charge of the asylum. As a result, the EPA has radically changed course. Rather than increasing the regulatory burden and tightening down on standards at a measured pace, whether or not such actions were actually needed, Obama's EPA has shifted the agency into hyperdrive. For example, the EPA has used a combination of targeted regulations, backdoor regulations, and targeted enforcement actions to ensure that the availability of cheap and plentiful coal-fired power will be sharply reduced over the next 20 years. Even as liberals and environmentalists continue to clamor for a carbon tax or a national cap-and-trade scheme, the EPA has already given them what they claim to want. A program that will take tens of thousands of megawatts of coal-fired power off the grid and thus further reduce America's emissions of greenhouse gases. And this huge shift in energy policy was accomplished without Congress having a say in the matter, or apparently even noticing. From fuel economy standards to new rules that cripple manufacturers to a backdoor cap-and-trade program, President Obama's EPA is introducing new regulations at a pace and scope that we have never seen before in virtually every area that the agency touches. They're studying new ways to micromanage America in the name of environmental purity that no nation on earth has ever felt the need to attain before. And their tentacles are reaching out into society and the economy in ways that few people can possibly imagine. We're looking at the tip of a huge iceberg that will affect the American economy for years to come. And, like another famous iceberg, this one has the ability to sink the ship that has been this nation's amazing vessel of prosperity.